everybody, welcome to Team Malachowski Adventures video. Some people have been asking me about my Jeep, wanting to know what's in it, so we decided to do a walk around video and let you know what's in this thing. It's a 94 YJ. It looks like a CJ7. I did the CJ7 conversion on it, and I know there's a lot of YJ purists that don't like that, but the reason why I did the CJ7 conversion on this Jeep is because when I first started loving Jeeps, it was the CJ7 time period, and I always wanted a brand new Jeep, and by the time I got to the point in my life where I could afford a new one, the YJs were being made. CJ7s were done, and I always loved the old school look, so I've owned this Jeep for what, 26 years, and I did the CJ7 conversion 3 years ago about. So it was mostly square headlight, so don't hate on me too much. But anyways, the only way that you can really tell that this is a YJ is by the dash. And my interior is very simple. I haven't done hardly any modifications to the interior. I used to have a radio, don't even have a radio anymore. I do have a Cobra CB. And then this, the factory roll bar, I tied in the OR Fab little windshield surround here. It attaches to the cowl. Nothing fancy, probably not even that safe, but that's about it for a roll bar in this thing. And these Corbeau seats, I love them. Really comfortable. It's my best interior mod. I love it. Still got the factory seat in the back. It didn't come with this seat. I bought this afterwards. When I bought this Jeep, it was the base model Jeep. It had nothing, just base 4-cylinder, not even power steering. I got the power steering later on in a junkyard, Scotty's Junkyard in California. So also on the front here, or on the outside, looking at this, I've got the GenRight corner blanks. We bought the aluminum corner blanks and flexed the Jeep out, made some templates and cut it out exactly where the tire stuffs. That works pretty good. Sun Performance rock sliders. They're from the 90s. I don't think they're in business anymore, but those have been on there for most of the Jeep's life. So my rear bumper is a Blue Torch Fabworks rear bumper, and with the skid plate, 1/4-inch steel skid plate. That's a Blue Torch Fabworks gas tank too. I don't know if you can really see, it's kind of a shadow. And then moving over here under the hood, what do I have in here? 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. Got this Rocket Parts open element air intake into a 62 millimeter Rubicon Express throttle body, Borla header, and that's about it for mods on this little engine. Optima Blue Top deep cycle battery. I've got an air conditioning compressor that was converted to an air compressor. So I got a little gauge, there's a pressure relief valve, pressure cutoff switch, and then you hook your air hose up right here, which is pretty handy dandy when you're airing your tires back up. Here's my winch controller. It's kind of inconvenient to have to open the hood to hook up my winch controller, but I'm used to it, so I don't use my winch a lot. Old school Warn winch, M8000. It's from the 90s, still made in the USA. Stock YJ front bumper, cut down with attachment points for a tow bar. All right, and then under here, high clearance steering. That's Dynatrac steering, Pro Rock 60 front axle. Ford F-150 brakes on these. It's a 3-link with a track bar, GenRight suspension. My springs are 150 / 200. Yeah, 14-inch travel. And doing these coils on a YJ frame is quite a challenge, because the YJ frame is straight. It doesn't turn in like on a TJ. The later Jeeps with the coils, these were leaf springs, so it's straight here. That was quite the challenge. I had to notch into the frame on this side to get enough clearance for the spring. It was pretty challenging to get all this to fit.
How'd you get your steering up so high? This is stock, but...
Yeah, that's the Genrite Twisted Pitman arm, it's called. Yeah, that thing is really nice. It's pretty beefy, pretty race car. Yeah.
Sure does make it nice.
Yeah, it works pretty good. Axles have Detroit lockers, front and rear, 538 ring and pinion. I don't worry too much about breaking anything on these axles with this little engine. Let's look at the rear suspension. The King coilovers. That's where I mounted my reservoir right there. I had to French into the frame right here. You can see how that's cut in. It's pretty challenging to put this on, but it all worked out pretty good. Rear is a 4-link. And that's a high pinion Pro Rock 60 rear axle. 538s, Detroit locker, like the front. Works pretty good. F-150 brakes. And my tires are Goodyear MTRs. They're 38 by 14 and a half 17s. And those are 17 by 9 spider lock bead locks. They're pretty good. I like them. And so underneath here, if we look under here, I've got a Genrite aluminum skid plate. I've got an NP231. It's the factory transfer case with a Terra Low 4-to-1 in it. It's been pretty reliable for me all these years. I put that in back in the 90s. So it's been on there a long time.
She's built, not bought.
Yeah. So when I first got this Jeep, before it had 300 miles on it, I had already put a lift. I put 4-inch lift springs. They were Pro Comp springs, really stiff. It was a cheap suspension. That's why I bought it. Rode really rough. Nobody would ever ride with me more than once. So I wanted to upgrade to a better spring. I got National springs. They were still spring under, 4-inch lift leaf springs. And those were pretty good, but I wanted it to work a little better, flex a little better. So then I went to spring over axle using stock YJ springs. And that worked pretty good. I had 35s on it at the time. I had the fenders cut with TJ flares, which was popular back then. That was in the early 2000s, I think. And then after that, I went to the Blue Torch Fab Works. They sold a kit. That's what this bumper goes with. It used to have shackles welded here, and the shackles for the leaf springs were way out here. And it used Cherokee rear springs, and that would move the axle back 6 inches. So I had to clear the 38s I wanted to run. I had a 2-inch lift spring in the rear, a Cherokee lift spring, and a Rubicon Express 4-inch lift spring in the front, spring over axle, and it sat ridiculously high. And I never liked the way it looked, and a lot of axle wrap and stuff. So that's when I decided to go to this suspension, and I love it. I think it's been about 3 years I've been driving with this suspension now, so it works pretty good. Yep, so thanks for joining us for another video. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you on the trails. Yeah, 10-4.